The brutal ambush had trapped the SEAL team in a narrow canyon, casualties mounting rapidly. Radio static crackled with desperation. "We're abandoned here. No one's coming to save us." Enemy forces closed in step by step, tightening their deadly grip. Just as hope was fading, a single rifle shot echoed from a distant mountain ridge. The precise bullet dropped an enemy sniper instantly. That gunshot reverberated across the battlefield, stunning everyone into silence. Who had pulled the trigger from above? Staff Sergeant Reina Vasquez moved through the forward operating base with the quiet efficiency that had characterized her 18 months as a logistics technician assigned to frontline medical support. At 28, her long brown hair pulled back in regulation style, and her slender frame made her nearly invisible among the more assertive combat personnel who dominated military field operations. To the soldier she served alongside, she was exactly what her assignment indicated, a support specialist whose job was maintaining medical equipment and assisting with casualty care, not engaging in direct combat operations. "Vasquez is good at her job," Gunnery Sergeant Williams would tell new arrivals during orientation briefings. "But she's medical logistics, not a shooter. She keeps the medbay running and handles supply coordination. That's about the extent of her combat qualifications." Petty Officer Rodriguez was more direct in his assessment. "She's reliable support staff, but if shooting starts, she's not someone you want in your squad. Better to keep her where she belongs, handling bandages and medical supplies." Reina would listen to such evaluations without response, continuing her duties with the methodical precision that kept field medical operations functioning under combat conditions. While her colleagues saw only a dedicated support specialist whose expertise was limited to logistics applications, Reina used her position to observe everything about combat operations that others took for granted. She understood enemy tactics through the wounds she helped treat, analyzed battlefield patterns through casualty reports, and recognized equipment capabilities through the gear that passed through her supply chain. More importantly, she found ways to serve that went beyond official logistics responsibilities. When combat troops returned from patrol with damaged equipment, Reina would quietly repair gear using skills that seemed to exceed standard maintenance training. When young Marines struggled with anxiety before dangerous missions, she would offer practical advice disguised as routine medical checkups. When veteran soldiers dealt with equipment malfunctions that could affect mission safety, she would ensure their gear was functioning perfectly before they left the base. "Just trying to keep operations running smoothly," she would say when anyone noticed these efforts, deflecting attention from expertise that appeared to exceed her official qualifications. These quiet acts of support were dismissed as typical behavior from someone whose job was maintaining readiness rather than evidence of broader military knowledge and experience. "She's thorough," observed Chief Petty Officer Martinez, who coordinated base operations. "But logistics personnel don't need to understand tactical applications. They just need to keep equipment and supplies moving efficiently." But Reina's understanding of tactical operations went far deeper than logistics training would suggest. In her personal footlocker, wrapped carefully in protective material, she kept a small wooden box containing a silver coin engraved with the Kraken unit insignia and a worn rifle cleaning cloth that connected her to operations so classified they remained known only to select participants. The coin represented missions that had tested every aspect of her training, operations that had required capabilities most military personnel never developed, and teammates who had died during actions that would never appear in official records. Her transition to logistics duty after classified special operations service had been her choice, motivated by a desire to continue serving military personnel without the psychological burden of the life or death decision-making that had defined her previous specialization. But some skills never completely disappear. They just wait quietly until circumstances require their application. Private Martinez later recalled, "I once saw her cleaning an abandoned M24 sniper rifle in the weapons storage area. Nobody asked her to do it. Nobody would have known if she hadn't. But the way she handled that weapon wasn't like someone who had just read the manual. It was like someone who had used it professionally. The patrol had begun as routine reconnaissance, with Alpha Team conducting surveillance of suspected enemy activity in the mountainous terrain surrounding their forward operating base. But what was supposed to be a standard information gathering mission became a nightmare when the 8-man SEAL team walked into a carefully planned ambush in a narrow canyon that offered no escape routes. Enemy forces had positioned themselves on the high ground with overlapping fields of fire, creating what military tacticians call a kill zone, an area where anyone trapped inside faces almost certain death from coordinated defensive positions. "Mayday, mayday, this is Alpha Team," crackled Petty Officer Jackson's voice over the radio, barely audible through the sound of automatic weapons fire. "We are taking heavy casualties and need immediate extraction. We're pinned down in grid 34792. The Tactical Operations Center erupted in urgent activity as commanders attempted to coordinate a rescue operation for the trapped SEALs. But every option they examined led to the same grim conclusion. No available units could reach Alpha Team's position quickly enough to prevent their complete elimination." "Sir, our nearest QRF is 40 minutes out," reported the operations officer to Colonel Harrison. "The helicopter route takes them through enemy air defense coverage, and ground units can't navigate that terrain fast enough." "What about air support?" Colonel Harrison asked, studying the tactical display that showed Alpha Team's increasingly desperate situation. "Negative, sir. Weather conditions have grounded all close air support aircraft. We're looking at zero visibility and dangerous wind conditions for the next 2 hours." Radio transmissions from Alpha Team painted a picture of soldiers fighting for their lives against overwhelming odds, with ammunition running low and casualties mounting. "We're down to our last magazines," Jackson reported during a brief lull in the fighting. "If someone doesn't reach us soon, we're not making it out of here." The operations center fell into the kind of silence that accompanies the realization that good soldiers are about to die, and there's nothing anyone can do to prevent it. That's when Reyna stepped forward with a suggestion that surprised everyone present. "Sir, request permission to provide overwatch support from the ridge overlooking the canyon." Lieutenant Commander Peterson stared at her with obvious confusion. "Sergeant Vasquez, you're logistic support, not a sniper. This situation requires precision marksmanship under combat conditions." "I can provide accurate fire from elevated positions," Reyna replied, not elaborating on the source of her confidence. "Sergeant, this isn't a training exercise," Colonel Harrison interrupted. "We're talking about long-range precision shooting against experienced enemy combatants who will be actively trying to kill you." But Reyna had already begun studying the topographical maps and calculating angles, distances, and environmental factors that would affect long-range shooting in the mountainous terrain. "Sir, the ridge position offers clear sightlines to enemy positions in the canyon. Range is approximately 1,200 meters with predictable wind patterns." Chief Petty Officer Martinez, who had been monitoring the exchange, recognized that Reyna's tactical analysis contained details that exceeded what logistics personnel normally learn during their training. "Sergeant, where did you learn about ballistics calculations and environmental compensation for long-range shooting?" "Previous training assignments," Reyna replied, not providing additional details about the nature or extent of that training. Colonel Harrison was struggling with a decision that could result in losing both his trapped SEAL team and a logistics specialist who was volunteering for a mission that exceeded her official qualifications. "Sergeant Vasquez, even if you have some marksmanship experience, this situation requires capabilities that take years to develop." But Reyna was already moving toward the weapons storage area, where she retrieved an M24 sniper rifle that had been used for training exercises and was now stored with other equipment that wasn't currently assigned to active personnel. "Sir, with respect, Alpha Team is going to die if someone doesn't provide immediate support. I can reach the overwatch position and begin engagement within 30 minutes. The rifle she selected showed signs of recent maintenance. The action was smooth, the optics were properly zeroed, and the weapon was in perfect condition despite having been in storage. Master Sergeant Thompson, a decorated infantry veteran who had been observing the exchange, Notice that Reyna handled the M24 with familiarity that suggested extensive experience with precision weapons. Sergeant, that's a complex weapons system that requires advanced training to operate effectively. I'm familiar with the platform, Reyna replied, conducting function checks with movements that appeared automatic rather than deliberate. How familiar? Reyna looked at Thompson with steady eyes that revealed nothing about her background or previous experience. Familiar enough to engage targets at the ranges and conditions we're facing. Radio static from Alpha Team interrupted the discussion with increasingly desperate transmissions about their deteriorating situation. This is Jackson. We're down to final ammunition reserves. If extraction doesn't happen within the next 20 minutes, you can write us off. The decision became academic. Whether or not Reyna possessed the qualifications for the mission she was proposing, she was the only option available for providing immediate support to soldiers who were facing certain death without intervention. Master Sergeant Thompson later described that moment. When she picked up that M24, everything about her changed. The way she checked the action, verified the optics, tested the trigger. That wasn't someone who had read about sniper rifles. That was someone who had used them when lives depended on accuracy. The climb to the overwatch position took Reyna 23 minutes through terrain that would have challenged most infantry soldiers. She moved with the controlled urgency of someone who understood that every second meant increased probability of casualties among the trap SEAL team below. When she reached the ridge overlooking the canyon where Alpha Team was pinned down, Reyna established her shooting position with precision that reflected extensive training in long-range marksmanship under combat conditions. She analyzed wind patterns, calculated range to various target positions, and established fields of fire that would allow her to engage multiple enemy positions while remaining concealed from return fire. Through her rifle scope, she could see the tactical situation that Alpha Team faced. Enemy fighters positioned on elevated rocks and behind natural cover, systematically eliminating any movement from the trap SEALs with coordinated fire. The range to the nearest enemy position was 1,247 meters, a distance that would challenge even experienced military snipers under ideal conditions. But Reyna was operating in mountainous terrain with variable wind conditions and limited visibility due to dust and smoke from the ongoing firefight. Alpha Team, this is Overwatch, she transmitted over the radio, using a call sign that wasn't in her official records. I have eyes on your position and am engaging enemy targets. Stand by. Petty Officer Jackson's response reflected the desperation of soldiers who had been fighting for their lives for over an hour. Overwatch, we don't have anyone assigned to sniper support. Who is this? Just keep your heads down and be ready to move when I clear your exit route. Reyna's first shot was a test of conditions, wind speed, air density, and the accuracy of her rifle's zero under operational conditions. The bullet struck an enemy fighter who had been positioning himself to throw a grenade into Alpha Team's defensive position. The precise shot at extreme range created immediate confusion among enemy forces, who began searching for the source of fire that had eliminated one of their fighters from an impossible distance. Jesus Christ, came Jackson's voice over the radio. That was a perfect shot. Whoever you are, you just saved Peterson's life. But Reyna was already engaging her second target, an enemy machine gunner whose position commanded the canyon's exit route. Her shot eliminated the threat and created an opening that Alpha Team could use for extraction if they could reach it. The systematic elimination of enemy positions continued with mechanical precision that reflected years of training and operational experience. Each shot was carefully planned, precisely executed, and devastatingly effective in neutralizing threats that had been preventing Alpha Team's escape. Overwatch, you're shooting like a ghost, Jackson transmitted after Reyna's 7th confirmed kill. Where did you learn to shoot like that? Training that I hope never to use again, Reyna replied, continuing to engage targets that posed immediate threats to the trapped SEALs. By the time she had fired 12 rounds, the enemy's coordinated attack had dissolved into chaotic retreat as fighters realized they were being hunted by someone whose capabilities exceeded anything they had prepared to face. "Alpha Team, your exit route is clear," Reyna reported. "Move now while you have the advantage." The SEALs began their extraction under cover provided by continued precision fire from Reyna's position. But as they moved through the canyon, Jackson made a radio transmission that changed everything about how the mission would be remembered. "Overwatch, I need to confirm your identity. That level of marksmanship, are you Silent Hawk?" The question hit the radio frequency like a physical force. Silent Hawk was a legend in special operations circles, the sniper who had achieved impossible shots during classified missions, whose accuracy had saved entire units during the most dangerous operations of recent military history. "Confirm your last transmission," came the voice of Colonel Harrison from the Tactical Operations Center, who had been monitoring the engagement in disbelief. "Silent Hawk," Reyna replied quietly, using the call sign she hadn't spoken aloud in 3 years. "Kraken Unit, Deep Reconnaissance Operations." The revelation spread through the Tactical Operations Center like electricity as personnel processed the information that their logistics technician was actually one of the most accomplished military snipers in recent operational history. "Silent Hawk was reported killed in action during Operation Desert Mirage," Colonel Harrison transmitted. "How is this possible? I chose to let that person die when the unit was disbanded," Reyna replied. "But Alpha Team needed Silent Hawk today." As the SEALs reached safe positions and began their return to base, they continued to process the impossible reality that they had been saved by someone whose identity exceeded anything they had imagined possible. "Ma'am," Jackson transmitted, his voice thick with emotion, "I served with Marines who were saved by Silent Hawk during the siege of Ramadi. They said you were a ghost who appeared when situations were hopeless." "I was just doing my job," Reyna replied, beginning to disassemble her rifle and prepare for her own return to base. Same as today. Master Sergeant Thompson, who had been monitoring the mission from the operations center, approached the radio with obvious respect for someone whose achievements exceeded his own operational experience. "Silent Hawk, your shooting today was beyond anything I've ever witnessed. 12 targets eliminated at ranges exceeding 200 meters under combat conditions." "The targets were eliminated because Alpha Team needed to come home," Reyna replied. "That's the only metric that matters." When the rescued SEALs reached base, they were met by medical personnel, debriefing officers, and command staff who wanted to understand how a routine patrol had become a rescue operation conducted by a sniper whose capabilities exceeded official military records. But perhaps most significantly, they were met by a logistics technician who had quietly returned to her normal duties as if eliminating 12 enemy fighters from extreme range was simply another day's work in support of military operations. Colonel Harrison approached Reyna as she completed her equipment maintenance and prepared to file her after-action report. "Sergeant Vasquez, Silent Hawk, I don't know how to properly address someone whose service record exceeds anything in my experience. Sir, Staff Sergeant Vasquez will be fine. Silent Hawk completed her mission today." But everyone who had witnessed Reyna's demonstration of impossible marksmanship understood that they had served alongside someone whose true capabilities exceeded anything they had previously imagined possible. Type, "I owe a debt." If you've ever witnessed someone dismissed as support staff, prove they were capable of extraordinary things when lives were on the line. Heroes don't always announce themselves. Sometimes they just appear on the ridge when you need them most. The aftermath of Alpha Team's rescue created immediate changes in how base personnel viewed their quiet logistics technician, but Reyna deflected most attempts to acknowledge her demonstrated capabilities or discuss her classified background. When offered commendations for her actions during the rescue operation, she declined formal recognition. When intelligence officers requested debriefings about her previous service with Kraken Unit, she provided only the minimum information necessary for operational security. "I prefer to focus on my current assignment rather than discussing classified operations that are no longer relevant," she told Colonel Harrison during their private meeting. The rescued SEALs approached her with gratitude that went beyond simple thanks for professional service. They understood that they owed their lives to someone whose skills exceeded anything they had previously encountered. Petty Officer Jackson, who had led Alpha Team during their desperate fight for survival, sought her out during evening chow to express appreciation that he struggled to articulate. "Ma'am, what you did on that ridge. I've served with the best snipers in the Navy, and none of them could have made those shots under those conditions. Jackson, you and your team fought with courage that gave me targets worth engaging. The mission succeeded because everyone did their job. But we never knew you were capable of. You weren't supposed to know. That was the point of choosing logistics duty over operational assignments." The other members of Alpha Team began seeking her guidance on technical issues related to precision shooting, equipment maintenance, and tactical planning that had nothing to do with medical logistics. "Silent Hawk," asked Petty Officer Peterson during one of their conversations, "would you be willing to provide some advanced marksmanship training?" "I'll teach you whatever helps keep you alive during missions," Raina replied. "But some techniques require security clearances and background checks that exceed standard military authorization." Master Sergeant Thompson, who had recognized the significance of Raina's shooting demonstration, began treating her with the respect that experienced military personnel show toward someone whose capabilities exceed their own. "Ma'am, can I ask you something?" "You can ask. I might not answer." "Why choose logistics support over returning to operational sniper duties?" Raina was quiet for a moment, touching the silver Kraken unit coin she carried as a reminder of teammates who had died during missions that would never be publicly acknowledged. "Thompson, operational sniping requires making decisions about who lives and who dies. Logistics support lets me help people without carrying that psychological burden. But your country needs people with your capabilities in active combat roles. My country needs people who can keep combat units supplied and equipped so they can complete their missions successfully. Both jobs serve the same ultimate purpose." The base's tactical procedures were influenced by Raina's demonstration that support personnel might possess capabilities that exceeded their official job descriptions. Officers began paying more attention to the backgrounds and qualifications of soldiers assigned to support roles. But perhaps most importantly, personnel began to understand that effectiveness often comes from unexpected sources, and that assumptions about capability based on current assignments might not reflect someone's complete qualifications. Late at night, when the base was quiet except for essential security operations, Raina would sit in the equipment storage area and clean the M24 rifle that had enabled her to save Alpha Team. The routine of weapon maintenance connected her to memories of teammates from Kraken unit who had died during operations that required capabilities most people never develop. Still watching over them, she would whisper to the darkness, promising fallen comrades that she would continue protecting others, even if that protection came from different positions and used different methods than their shared operational experience. Type, "I will live boldly," if you believe that true guardians work in the shadows, ready to appear when others need protection most. Heroes don't need recognition. They just need the opportunity to serve when circumstances require their skills. This story isn't just about one sniper's dramatic intervention during a military crisis. This is about the fundamental error we make when we judge people based on their current job assignments, rather than their complete backgrounds and capabilities. It's about the dangerous assumption that support roles are filled by people who lack the qualifications for more demanding positions, rather than by people who have chosen to serve in ways that align with their values and personal needs after completing more challenging service. Raina Vasquez represents something our society needs to understand. The most capable people are often those who deliberately choose positions that don't showcase their full range of abilities. They work in support, logistics, and maintenance roles, not because they're limited, but because they understand that meaningful service comes in many forms, and recognition isn't necessary for impact. Consider what you witnessed. A woman dismissed as logistics support saved 8 elite military personnel using skills that exceeded what most professional snipers develop in their entire careers. Her 18 months of medical logistics work weren't evidence of career limitations. They were her chosen method of continuing to serve military personnel without the psychological burden of life or death combat decision-making. But here's the deeper truth her story reveals. Every organization contains people whose backgrounds and capabilities remain hidden until circumstances reveal them. The maintenance worker might have crisis management experience that exceeds what most leaders ever develop. The administrative assistant might have technical expertise that shaped entire industries. The support staff member might have operational experience that could solve problems others can't even understand. These people aren't underperforming in lesser roles. They're choosing to serve in ways that allow them to contribute without the complications that come with recognition, authority, or high visibility responsibility. The most dangerous mistake we make is assuming that someone's current position reflects their maximum capabilities or their complete life experience. But Raina's story proves that sometimes the most qualified people deliberately choose anonymity, not because they fear responsibility, but because they've already carried more responsibility than most people can imagine. This has profound implications for how we treat people in support positions, how we assess human potential, and how we recognize value in our communities. The person maintaining your organization's equipment might be more strategically capable than the people making high-level decisions. The worker handling routine tasks might have operational experience that could revolutionize entire systems. Tomorrow you might encounter someone in what appears to be a routine support role who gets dismissed as unqualified for more important work. Before you make assumptions about their limitations, remember Raina's story. That quiet person might be choosing to serve in ways that don't require them to exercise the full range of their capabilities, not because they're incapable of more, but because they understand service at a level that transcends personal advancement. Because heroes don't always need to be in charge, and the most important protection often comes from people whose true qualifications would surprise everyone who thinks they know their story. If you believe in stories that honor hidden guardians and quiet excellence, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe to NL Touching Stories. We tell the stories that shouldn't be forgotten. Real people creating real stories, not mass-produced AI.